A new centrist group is gambling that millions of Americans are fed up with this country's two-party system. They're announcing the creation of a third political party to be called Forward. In a Washington Post op-ed this evening, the party's founders, David Jolly, Christine Todd Whitman, and Andrew Yang, write the following. The two major parties have hollowed out the sensible center of our political system, even though that is where most voters want to see them move. A new party must stake out the space in between. So let's discuss. With us tonight, our dear friends Jason Johnson, a politics and journalism professor at Morgan State University, an MSNBC political contributor, and Stuart Stevens, a veteran of the Mitt Romney and George W. Bush presidential campaigns. He is now with the Lincoln Project. His latest book, It Was All a Lie, How the Republican Party Became Donald Trump, is a must-read. I highly recommend it. Gentlemen, there was a lot I wanted to talk about tonight, and then boom, the Forward news came. Stuart, to you first. What do you think? Is it possible?
No, it's not possible. Look, I have sort of a soft spot in my heart for something like this, but it doesn't mean I have one in my head. If you believe the country is in an existential crisis, which I believe, and I think a lot of people share that view. It's certainly what we believe in the Lincoln Project. This idea of a third party is sort of an indulgence. It's like you're in the middle of a knife fight and you decide that really your biggest problem is losing weight. It's probably a good idea to lose weight, but there really are more pressing things like getting out of this knife fight alive. I like a lot of the people involved here. I respect them. But I don't think that this is the way forward to save democracy. And I think that's really, there aren't two political parties in America now. That's sort of a misnomer to say that we're going to have three. There's a pro-autocracy movement, which is what the Republican Party has become. And there's a Democratic Party. And I spent a lot of my life pointing out flaws in the Democratic Party, but it is the last best hope to save democracy. And that's just how the real world is. And I think we ought to live in it.
All right. So what I'm hearing Stuart tell me, Jason, is you get what you get and you don't get upset. There's two parties. That's it. What do you think?
Well, partially. I agree with Stuart in this regard. I've been saying for most of this year now, there is no Republican Party. It is a dime storefront for a terrorist movement. It's Hamas to the PLO. Like, it's not a party. So we only have one party that governs. The other issue that I see with this is purely theoretical. I am a political science professor, right? There's this thing called Duverger's law or Duverger's law, however you want to pronounce it. It basically says in a system like ours, where in order to win, you have to get 50% plus one of the vote, it doesn't make sense to have a third party. It is a system that's sort of like a centrifuge that makes you want to be in two because it increases your chances. But even on a more practical level, Stephanie, what have we got going on in this country right now? Massive voter suppression. I don't care about third party. I don't care about the choices that we have when we don't even know if the votes that we put forward are going to be counted. I think it would be much more interesting and much more productive to put efforts into, I don't know, blocking the Supreme Court, which is about to say that independent legislatures can ignore your votes, stopping what's happening in Georgia, stopping what's happening in Florida, stopping all these crazy stop the steal people. That is much better energy to be used right now. I just don't think this is practical at this particular point, and theoretically, it ain't going to make much sense.
Well, the op-ed does say voter rights are a priority. Stuart, even if ideologically this third party is in line with a whole lot of Americans, technically and practically speaking, have we created a two-party system that at this point is impenetrable, so there's no point in even trying to do this?
The short answer to that is yes. Maybe the long answer is unfortunately yes, but it's still yes. That's just how we are in America. I mean, Michael Bloomberg thought about running for president as an independent. And I have on good authority, he put a bunch of smart people in a room and said, the first check I will write is for $2 billion. And these people, to their credit, could not come to a way in which he could win the presidency. And he didn't want to be a spoiler. It is extraordinarily difficult to get on the ballot. It is extraordinarily difficult to create a party structure from nowhere. And my greatest fear about this is that it is going to detract and distract people from what is really the greatest crisis we have, which is stopping an autocratic movement. This is sort of, I mean, I hate to say it, it sounds harsh, it's sort of a vanity project.
All right, well then, is there another way to skin this cat? And it's get rid of closed primaries, have open primaries, go with ranked choice voting, because where so much of this is coming from is when you see centrist lawmakers decide to not run again because they can't bear the brunt of getting primaried. Are the primaries the real problem here? Jason?
Stephanie, I don't think it's an issue with the primaries. I think when I look at this op-ed and I read what these people are trying to do, I think of it also as a marketing issue. Like if I open up a new burger joint, it's because I'm like, hey, McDonald's isn't doing this and Burger King isn't doing this and Zaxby's only offers chicken, right? What are they actually offering this middle? Because a lot of times, and theoretically, I don't really believe in swing voters. A lot of times independents in America, it's not that they really want middle of the road politics. It's because they don't believe either of the other parties can get things done that they like. So they just say I'm independent because the Republicans are too crazy and the Democrats won't give me what I want. You have to actually be offering something. You have to be telling people there's a thing that this third party, that Forward, can do that the other two parties haven't. And until we see that, it doesn't even make any sense. I don't know who they're appealing to. Are they appealing to millennials? Are they appealing to black voters? Are they appealing to the growing AAPI community? Unless they can tell me who they're selling and what they're selling, that part doesn't make any sense. And that has nothing to do with primaries or money or funding or anything. It has to do with basic marketing of a party.
So what do you think is going to happen here, Stuart? What's going to be the outcome of this effort?
Not much. I think we're going to look back on it, and it might affect a race here or there. But it's not going to have a lot of impact. The tragedy here would be if they get on the ballot in the presidential race in a couple of states and drain votes that would have gone to President Biden or whoever the Democratic nominee is, opposing Donald Trump, whoever the Republican is. I mean, ultimately, politics is often a game of small numbers. So you could drain moderate. This party's going to be overwhelmingly white, moderate white voters who otherwise might have supported a Democrat, even though they aren't institutionally Democrat. I think it would have a very negative impact then, and really potentially a tragic impact when democracy's on the ballot.